The Mystara project is proud to present part 36 of the Characters of Mystara series. In this video, we take a look at the sky-gnome Yardarm, Agnesia. Agnesia was introduced in the 1992 boxed set, Wrath of the Immortals, on page 53 of Book 2, The Immortals' Fury. In AC 819, Agnesia was born into the respected, but small, Gromalt Handler clan, in the gnomish quarter of the flying city of Serene. Her parents, Nupiki and Muisoksa, were mechanical engineers. Her brother, Khosraw, is 5 years older than her. In AC 892, young Agnesia bought her first meddling box and skyhook set, and started work as an apprentice mechanic on the Skychair system. On Fermont 9, AC 911, Agnesia watched on, as Serene's Akak guns won the day against a flight of red dragons. In AC 913, the Skull Druge, Matazumi, suddenly appeared, terrifying Agnesia and other locals, as he buzzed angrily around the city, radiating terror. He was disabled and imprisoned by the Master of the Onyx Tower. The Master then offered Matazumi freedom, if he agreed to protect the Great Library from theft for 200 years under Guise. Fortunately, Agnesia was not found to be responsible for a Skychair accident in AC 982. In AC 1000, Agnesia, curious to visit more of the world, volunteered to be one of many sky-gnomes to assist the Empire of Alphatia with a secret project. The excitement of the opportunity outweighed the unknown nature of the project. Agnesia and her fellow volunteers boarded an Alphatian skyship and departed Serene. The sky-gnomes were brought to the island of Egos in the Elatian Islands, southeast of the Isle of Dawn. There they were briefed on the ambitious project by the Alphatian general, Dogrel. To the sky-gnomes, the briefing initially appeared to be some sort of grand practical joke. A new world in the interior of the planet had been discovered, but Alphatians could not use magic to directly travel there. Instead they wanted the sky-gnomes, and dwarfs from the Alphatian kingdom of Stout Fellow, who were also at the briefing, to design machinery to dig a 1,200-mile shaft straight down through the Earth's crust. A mechanism for transporting personnel between the worlds would also need to be designed, but there was a catch. Around a depth of 600 miles, the Alphatians had detected an antimagic zone and lava, where gravity flipped. When asked why the sky-gnomes of a foreign city were invited to work on this tunneling project, instead of the Earth-gnomes of Stout Fellow, General Dogrel dryly replied that the Imperial Council had been underwhelmed by some recent Stout Fellow inventions badly malfunctioning, whereas they marvel at the achievements of the flying city of Serene. Finally, Dogrel advised the attendees that the project was top secret, and they would have no contact with the outer world for some time, including no mail. After the briefing, Agnesia was advised her pay would be 35 gold crowns per month. Agnesia, the other sky-gnomes, and the dwarven engineers then got to work on designs and prototype testing. The Alphatians built a walled settlement called Pitstone, in Egos Island's interior. A 5-story building was constructed to cover the proposed pit from any prying aerial eyes. The sky-gnomes invented centipede-shaped tunnelers, able to bore into rock at 90 foot per turn, and catch the bored rock within, like a lawn mower. Their centipede-like legs enabled the tunnelers to grip the vertical pit walls to bore and travel up and down. Once the tunneler was full with rocks, it would return to the surface, and eject its load to be transported by donkeys with baskets, and dumped in the eastern hills. The tunnelers were an improvement on the Highforge gnomes' oddwaddle centipedes, which were mainly designed to transport mined ore. The dwarven engineers came up with solutions for the lava, such as special heat-resistant metals for the tunnelers, cables and cylinder cars. Both sets of engineers came up with a continuous chain loop pulley system for the cylindrical cars, to transport people to and from the hollow world. Adjustable ballast tanks could be used to equalize their weights. Short metal tunnel cylinders connected by metal posts to the shaft wall were planned to be placed every 75 miles or so, to prevent the chains from smashing against the shaft walls and destabilizing the car's journeys. These short tunnels and posts needed to leave enough room for the centipedes to move up and down the shaft walls on their outside. The cylinder cars were designed by the sky-gnomes to have rotating seats with spherical housings and seat belts, to invert when crossing the reversed gravity junction at the world shield. The cars were to contain overhead luggage storage and an outhouse for the 34-hour journey, but no installed light source. The 1,200-mile pit took about 4 years to excavate, with non-stop 24-hour operations. 2 large resting areas were built either side of the world shield, outside the anti-magic zone, called midpoint up and midpoint down. Magic was used to cool their temperatures and provide fresh air. These rest platforms also allowed the cylinder cars to cool off, after going through the lava. In the end, the pit had 4 cables running with 2 cars each. The sky-gnomes then started work on coming up with a conveyance, to allow the cylinder cars cable to go in either direction, enabling use of larger cars that could depart on an hourly basis. In AC 1004, the tunnelers emerged in the jungle territory of the Neither Nogai tribe, in the Hollow World. The Nogai were suspicious, rather than hostile, at the strange machines emerging from the ground. More tunnelers arrived, transporting some troops. The Alphatians started building a settlement and subjugating the Nogai, whilst the dwarfs and sky-gnomes constructed the cylindrical car pulley system. Once completed, Alphatians, sky-gnomes and dwarfs started arriving in numbers, founding the town of Haldamar. Agnesia was responsible for maintaining the tunnelers. In the summer of AC 1005, Kelter Zurban, a charismatic Daracinian cleric of Balthak, serving in the army of Egos, approached the sky-gnomes Doblan, Popular and Agnesia in Haldamar. Agnesia could not understand him, so the others translated for her. He told them that Balthak had instructed him to put an end to the Alphatian cruel subjugation of the Nogai. He was to do this by creating a distraction to allow the Nogai to escape. Then to stop Alphatian exploitation of this hollow world, he was to use the tunnelers to collapse the pit, and Balthak would safely transport everyone in the pit to the surface world. Agnesia and her kin felt guilt at the cruelty their ingenuity had enabled, yet they were also reluctant to sabotage over 4 years of work on such a monumental project, and risk bringing shame on their clans, and execution for treason by the Alphatians. But Kelter was able to skillfully amplify their guilt, and they decided to help him free the hollow world from the Alphatians. They each stole a tunneler and left Haldamar without being questioned. Kelter contacted the Heldanic Knights and gave them information on how best to attack the town of Haldamar. In the meantime, the Alphatians noticed the 4 missing personnel and centipedes. A week later, the Heldanic Knights attacked, allowing Agnesia and the other 3 to assist the Nogai to escape Haldamar. The 4 traitors then honeycombed the pit for hundreds of feet. Kelter then called upon Balthak, only to discover he had been duped by Hel, masquerading as his fictitious immortal. There would be no safety for those in the pit. Kelter had been tricked. Then an explosion started collapsing the pit. Kelter, and 16 people he rescued, surfaced several weeks later in a centipede at Pitstun. He slipped away in the confusion. Agnesia's stats were not provided. Assuming she is a 0-level sky-gnome, her character sheet may look like this. PC2 Top Ballista advises gnomes live for hundreds of years, but does not provide any specific age details. Agnesia is near the lower end of the gnomish height range, at 3'7", qualifying as smaller than man-sized. Sky gnomes have retained their ancestral 90-foot infravision, despite being aerial for almost a millennium. She knows the standard languages of her native gnomish, dwarvish, the Lala tongue of the Hin, and the tongue of the ancestral enemies of her people, Kobold. She also knows Sky Common, spoken by the various sentient species inhabiting Serene. She is neutrally aligned, with a willingness to disobey rules and laws, if they weigh on her conscience. She has average ability scores, with the exception of her high agility. She saves as a first-level dwarf, with success ranging from 65% versus poisons and death rays, to 40% against dragon breath. She has a normal morale of 8. Agnesia is 55% proficient in machine building, engineering and piloting centipede-shaped tunnelers. She has 45% competency with fantasy physics. But these are boosted by 5% when she is dealing with machinery, as a sky-gnome ancestry bonus. She has 2 more ancestry bonuses. When on board a flying machine, mount, or structure, she has a 50% chance of knowing the approximate altitude, speed, safety of particular maneuvers, and if weather patterns are natural, or if they have subtly been affected by magic. She gets a 5% armor class bonus, against larger than man-sized opponents. She has an above-average 6 hit points, full movement speed, and a modest armor class of 7. She is equipped as a mechanic, rather than an adventurer. She has a meddling box with various items to fidget with or chew, whilst contemplating the complexities of a fantasy physics design. She has a lockable skyhook set of tools, inscribed with her name, for machine building and repairs. Agnesia's traits are in the average range, which is expected for neutrally aligned characters. Her most positive trait is her energetic nature, common to sky-gnomes. Her salient negative traits are irreverence to the immortals, vengefulness, and dishonesty. However, none of these traits are strong enough to define her reputation. Agnesia is a minor character in the Mystery in Egos section of the Immortals Fury adventure campaign. PCs playing that adventure may get to briefly meet her in the town of Haldamar, before she is approached by Kelter's Urban and goes AWOL. It appears that Kelter's centipede was the only one to make it out of the collapsed pit. The adventure campaign does not leave much room for the PCs to investigate the pit collapse, as they are ordered to get word to the surface world via flying ship through the southern polar opening, or burrow their way up to the surface in one of the last remaining tunnelers. In the latter case, the PCs could possibly burrow into a cavern system that happens to be where she is trapped, badly injured, but alive. If they recognize her, they will have to decide if they hide her from the Alphatian authorities or not. Hiding her from the authorities, and leaving Egos with her, could provide a nerve-wracking adventure. If they turn her in, she faces a trial and likely death penalty. Some surviving sky-gnomes could secretly contact Serene to seek their intervention in Agnesia's case. Perhaps the immortal, Benikander, asks the PCs to gather some more evidence of immortal involvement, to support Agnesia's defense case, and avoid diplomatic complications between Serene and Alphatia. This concludes part 36 of the Characters of Mystara series, featuring the sky-gnome Yardarm, Agnesia.